Hello everyone, I'm excited to do this video for y'all today. We're going to talk about whether or not you should pull for Yae Miko or not. First of all, I'm going to be very biased and say yes because she's one of my favorite characters in this game. However, before we actually start getting into the character and whatnot, I always preface these videos, or at least I try to, by telling you that this is not a video telling you how to use your primogems. This is just a video for those that are on the fence about Yae Miko and wondering how she works playstyle wise, if she's hard to build, and stuff like that. We're just gonna go over everything about the character and let you decide for yourself. But for me, I personally pulled Yae Miko in on her first banner because I like the character a lot. That's literally it. I could care less what her kid did at the time. But now that I've had a lot of time to play with her, she's getting her second rerun banner in a couple of days. First off, Yae Miko is a off-field damage DPS, or she does most of her damage through her elemental skill, which are these fox totems that she puts up. She can do a large amount of nuke damage with her burst, and we'll talk more about both of these and showcase them in a bit. So the skill, let's go over this real fast. Yae Miko can summon up to 3 fox totems that will hit nearby opponents with electro damage. If the totems are nearby each other, they will actually link up and power each other up. And this is why, if you look at the skill attributes for Yae Miko, she has... It does show 4 levels, but unfortunately, level 4 is for people that have Yae Miko C2. So if you're looking to see how much damage you can get with your totems at C0, look at level 3. That's the highest we can get, which is going to be 170.6% skill multiplier. And this is crowned. Keep that in mind. So it's going to be probably a bit lower unless you highly invest in your talents. But while this does look low, keep in mind again that you do have 3 of them up on the field, or you can have up to 3 of them on the field. For her burst, Yae Miko basically summons a huge lightning bolt that strikes the ground in the same spot. It does not track your enemies, so keep that in mind. However, it will strike the same spot additional times for each totem that you have up. So the more totems you have up when you cast your burst, the more lightning strike. So you want to make sure you have basically all your totems up and then cast the burst, and then you'll get the most out of this burst. Or you'll get the most damage. Mine's at level 9. It is also worth crowning if you do want to, maximize the damage out of your Yae Miko, but you don't have to. It is perfectly fine at 9 or even 8. Same with the totems, unless you really want to heavily invest in your Yae Miko's damage. Looking at the skill multipliers for the burst, you'll note that I believe this is the highest energy cost for a burst in the game, or at least it ties it. I'm not sure if anyone else has a 90 energy cost elemental burst, but Yae Miko has it, and that's pretty expensive. That is a lot of energy. You are going to need quite a bit of energy recharge as well as a battery for Yae Miko, since it doesn't generate that many elemental particles with her skill. So definitely consider having a battery of some sort. You'll notice that if you just cast the burst but don't have any totems up, you're only going to get that 442% skill damage, which is nice. But if you look at the 10 Thunderbolt damage, which is the additional Thunderbolts you get from sacrificing your totems, you'll see that it does way more damage than just the initial first bolt. Now, talking about her passive talents. This passive talent, when you cast your burst, you will actually reset the cooldown for your skill for each totem that is sacrificed. So you'll actually get a full reset here if you have all 3 totems on the field. Cast your burst, then all 3 of your totems can be summoned again. And that is actually Yae Miko's optimal combo when using her. Next up, we have Enlighten Blessing. Now this talent got a major buff in 3.0 because of the Dendro element being introduced. So every point of elemental mastery Yae Miko will have increases her totem damage by 0.15%. Now, when you're using Yae Miko in an aggravate team or a hyper bloom team, and you're building your elemental mastery, this talent is going to make sure your totems do a bit more damage, since it's you're more likely to invest heavily into elemental mastery when making those sorts of teams. And finally, she has a passive talent where you get a 25% chance to get one regional character talent material. Base material excluded when you're crafting. The rarity is that of the base material. So it's, it's a crafting passive. It's nice to have. We'll get into the weapons and the artifacts in just a bit, but I'm just going to showcase the abilities after talking about them so much. Alright, so this is Yae Miko's normal attacks. Keep in mind she is a catalyst user, so those will do electro damage. And this cannot be converted by other means like a C6 Bennett or a Candace or anything like that. So it will always do electro damage, and this is what the charge attack looks like. I'm sorry to that NPC who's like, what are you doing? But yeah, it shoots down a bunch of lightning bolts. As cool as her attacks look and all that stuff, she is doing most of her damage from her totems instead and her burst. So I haven't even upgraded. If you saw my talents, I didn't even upgrade the normal attack talent. You can, however, if you want to. I'm kind of blocking the skill and the burst icon right now, but her skill has 3 charges, as I mentioned before, so you can use this up to 3 times in rapid succession. And there's a little trick to Yae Miko's totems that we're going to showcase here. So we're going to summon the totems. When she summons them, she does a little dash. Now, here's something that you need to note. You see how the totems have a link toward each other? And not only that, do you see the I don't know what these charms are called. There's like 3 charms orbiting around the totems. I'll do the skill again so you can see. Those things that are orbiting them, that tells you the level of the totem. So remember that her totems at C0 can only get to maximum level 3. If you have her at C2, they start at level 2 and then they can go up to level 4. So when you're summoning her totems, I always suggest to do a triangle position so that they can stay linked to each other. Because if you do something like this, skill and then run over here, then skill, because you'll see they're not even linked. Therefore, they're only at level 1, doing the least amount of damage. So just keep that in mind, just to keep your totems in a close proximity-ish. You can still just do a straight line like this and be fine. Alrighty, I finally got Yae Miko's burst, so we're gonna fight some samurai here in just a sec and showcase it. So remember, before you cast her burst, you want to have as many totems as on the field, so 3, before you cast it, so that the burst attacks as many times as possible. And it'll reduce the cooldown with her passive talent, so that's something to remember. So we're just gonna use Nahida real fast. Tag the enemies, then summon the totems. Cast. And that's what Yae Miko's burst looks like, and because of her passive talent, we get the 3 totems back. Be careful when you get stuck like that, like I just did. If you mash skill while you're stuck on an object or something like this, you won't cast a... Like, she'll do the dash, but she won't place a totem because you can't put totems right on top of each other like that. Just a little extra advice there. But yeah, you saw the burst, and you'll need to note that it does do big damage and it will hit multiple enemies. But it will only hit in the same spot. So if you're fighting a boss or a bunch of enemies that are very mobile and just move a lot, be careful with your timing on the cast. Basically, that's all to Yae Miko's kit. She's a very easy character to play. No complicated combos, no animation canceling, anything like that. So let's talk about weapons and artifacts next. So mine is using the Widsith at Refinement 5. Funny thing about this weapon is that it actually performs better than her signature weapon only when you have a buff active. But the downside to that is this weapon has a low downtime, or a high downtime, because it's once every 30 seconds and the song lasts 10 seconds, so 20-second cooldown of downtime. That being said, her signature weapon, Kegura's Verity, which I don't have, I wish I did, is a very, very good weapon for Yae Miko, which will give her even more base attack and crit damage. She's very flexible, though. I mean, she's not picky. She will use... I don't have them because I'm, I'm not a whale, but Skyward Atlas is good. Memory of Death is good as long as you have a shielder. You can use, obviously I'm using the Widsith, that works too. You can use, I believe Eye of Perception is an okay choice if you want. Lost Prayer of the Sacred Winds is another good one. Plenty of 4-star, 5-star options for Yae Miko. Just, whatever you got, and I'm sure it's going to be fine. Artifacts are also very, very versatile, and I do not recommend you copy what I'm doing right here. These were just artifacts I slapped on at the time. But for Yae Miko, a better, 4-piece set is Emblem of Severed Fate because of the energy recharge and the additional damage you'll get with your energy recharge, since Yae Miko has a very expensive burst cost. You can also do something like 2-piece emblem for the energy and then 2-piece attack percentage like here. If you want, you can also do 2-piece of the Thundering Fury set for the electro damage bonus as well. Gilded Dreams though, if you're gonna use Yae Miko in a aggravate hyperbloom team, Gilded Dreams is probably the way to go. It's going to give her a lot of elemental mastery, which is going to increase her totem damage, as well as just make her aggravates and the hyper blooms more potent because of all the elemental mastery you'll be getting, and it'll also increase her attack depending on the teams you're building her with. When it comes to substats on your artifacts, you build her like you would any other main or sub DPS, but her stats do kind of like, she's good with a lot of stats, but that also means you have to build up quite a lot. So just like normal, you do want crit rate, crit damage, energy recharge, and of course elemental mastery. So this would be like a perfect artifact piece for Yae Miko if you just happen to have these. Obviously, we both know that these are hard to get. Same thing here, crit rate, crit damage, energy recharge. For the sands, again, if you're going aggravate, I probably need to swap this for an elemental mastery one. Again, if you're going aggravate or hyperbloom, which you should, you probably will be better off with an elemental mastery sands rather than an attack percentage one. Goblet, again, electro damage or elemental mastery if you can. Circlet, crit rate, crit damage, or elemental mastery if you're just using her just to be, the elemental reaction, using her for elemental reaction setups. Very, very simple to build when it comes to the substats. If you are using her with Raiden, however, you do not have to go as hard as you normally would with energy recharge, since Raiden is a very, very good battery. Mine barely has like a little under 120% energy recharge, and it's mostly fine. Mostly, keyword is mostly. But yeah, I guess I could up that a little bit. And then talents, I'm just going to go over these again. Her normal attack, you can just, I left it at 1 as you can see, and it's fine. You're not going to be really using it. Her totems are her bread and butter, as they allow her to do off-field damage and boost her bursts damage as well. So you're going to want these up all the time as often as possible. So that's why I maxed it out. And then her burst, which relies on her elemental skill, which does big damage, assuming the enemy can stand still long enough. Another tip about her burst that I forgot to mention is if you are fighting a group of enemies, it is better to use someone to help group them up, like a Sucrose or a Kazuha, just so that the lightning bolt can hit all of them. It has a pretty big AoE to hit a bunch of enemies grouped up, but keep in mind, like I said, it's only going to hit that one spot and only that spot. The lightning doesn't track your enemies, at least with her burst. And like most of these videos, I do showcase that all of my characters, or at least all of my 5-star characters, are C0. She's fine at C0, I will say this, but Yae Miko definitely does get quality of life as you get more constellations for her. I'm going to showcase most of them here. They're pretty simple. So C1, for every additional Tenko Thunderbolt that Yae Miko gets, she will restore additional elemental energy, 8 elemental energy for herself. So this right here is going to cut the cost of Yae Miko's, expensive burst by quite a bit, making it so that energy recharge it's still going to be needed, but not as much, and your batteries are just going to be that more efficient. So really, really good constellation there. It immediately gets rid of one of Yae Miko's biggest weaknesses. Constellation 2, this is the one I was talking about when it comes to totems. This makes your totems start at level 2 by default, and then making the max level 4, as well as increasing their attack range by 60%. Really, really nice. Especially, again, when you have mobile enemies that move around a lot. This makes it so your totems can still damage them, even if they happen to run pretty far. And then C3 and C5, as we know, are going to increase her skill and burst, but in Yae Miko's case, this is great. This just means, you know, bunch more damage for both. C4 is going to give an electro damage bonus to all nearby party members by 20% for a quick 5 seconds. But keep in mind, this is when your totems are hitting stuff, so this is going to be on all the time. So you basically give... It doesn't say it gives it to her, so, you know, this will give 20% damage bonus to your main electro DPS or whoever you're using that does electro damage. We're going to skip to C6, and she has a very, very simple C6. No paragraph here, literally just her totems will ignore 60% of opponent's defense, meaning, in other words, 60% more damage on your totems. Really, really good stuff here. So yeah, I would say the first two, or at least the first constellation, are more quality of life features, and then the rest is just more damage, basically. So if I were to suggest a constellation for Yae Miko, I would say just C1. That being said, my Yae Miko is still at C0, has been, you know, for a while, and I still think she's mostly fine. The high energy cost is quite a bit annoying. It just means that I burst, you know, maybe every other rotation or every other rotation and a half, depending on what I'm fighting. Because I do use her with Raiden Shogun for the energy. And finally, this is the team comp that I use with my Yae Miko. You don't have to use her. She's very versatile, as I said, with a bunch of team comps. You know, if you don't have Nahida, then you can use Kazuha for better grouping, or Sucrose for grouping, as well as the elemental mastery buff. If you don't have Zhongli, then you can use I only recommend a shielder just because Zhongli won't... First of all, he won't mess with the aggravate elemental reaction. He provides a shield for Yae Miko. There's something I forgot to mention. Yae Miko is a very squishy character. She has a very low defense by default. Luckily, she does most of her damage off field, so she shouldn't be in that much danger. But if you don't have Raiden Shogun, the next best battery is Fischl. You could also consider using Dori. Just remember to actually funnel Dori's burst to Yae Miko so that she gets the energy recharge from her burst. Basically, Yae Miko can fit in any team comp, whether it's an aggravate team, hyper bloom team, if you want to use her as a super conduct setup. But that being said, I think Yae Miko is just a solid character. I don't think she's gonna be like OP broken or anything like that, but she is fun to use. I like her playstyle, and she is just, you know, I've cleared Spiral Abyss with her as she is right now with all the artifacts and constellations you saw, and it's fine. It was fine. But just like most electro characters, she did get a lot more useful, again, because of aggravate and hyper bloom and all that stuff with Dendro. So she's definitely a more useful character these days than when she was first initially released. I don't know if I'm forgetting to cover out anything else, but if you have any questions about Yae Miko, if there's something I didn't go over, feel free to ask in the comments down below. That's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.